Hello and welcome to Antinatalism this week. We have 4 events to cover, 3 new books, and a lot of other stuff, so let's get on. Amanda Suknik and Travis Timmerman will be debating on April 25th about the question of having kids. The actual event name is Talk and Taste Debate: Should We Be Having More Kids? Needless to say, Amanda Suknik will be defending antinatalism, and so Travis will present the pronatalist case. By the way, Travis Timmerman was also interviewed on the Exploring Antinatalism podcast episode 42 back in 2021. I will put the link of that in the description. The event is happening on 25th April from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern Time in New York City. The address and location are on this event page, so if you happen to be in New York around 25th April, you may want to check this out. It's a paid event and the tickets are at $29 each. At this point in time, I'm not sure if there will be a recording available. Considering it is a paid event, it might be hard to get, but it will be good if we can at least get an audio version. Let's see if that happens. So, congratulations to Amanda for bagging this opportunity and all the best to her for making antinatalism great again. And then we have International Antinatalism Day coming up, which is on 9th April. Lawrence will be doing a live stream on that day. It will also be a fundraiser for MSI Reproductive Choices, which is a charitable organization helping women access contraception and safe abortions across the world. So, a very good cause and aligned with antinatalism. This in-person meetup, David BENATAR, Antinatalism and the Pain of Being Born, took place on Sunday 30th March in Lisbon, Portugal. It looks like it started with some good discussions and then it went into the usual spiral of argumentation. The Ethics of Birth, examining the arguments for and against antinatalism, was the title of the meetup on antinatalism organized online on 4th of April. I attended the event and I should say it was well organized in terms of discussion. Phil, who was the organizer and part of the group called Philosophers and Gamblers, had done good homework of collecting different arguments for and against antinatalism. People kept on jumping the boundaries, like for example, someone brought up risk argument in response to David Benatar's asymmetry. I think that happens anyway, and also the usual pushback like there is no one to take consent from, or aren't you happy to exist, and so on was also there. These kind of questions came up and were discussed, but overall credit to Phil's organization. It was a very good lively discussion and I hope we keep on having more of these in different parts of the world. Between June and October of 2024, Júlio Cabrera made 6 episodes criticizing David Benatar's arguments for antinatalism. They were in Spanish with English subtitles and published on a channel called Pessimistic Society. We summarized all of them in corresponding ATW episodes at the time. So that's not the news. The news is that those 6 criticisms have now been published in a book in English called 6 Antinatalist Criticisms Against Benatar. With minor corrections, the book is mainly English subtitles of what Júlio Cabrera had originally said. Just to be clear, both Júlio Cabrera and David Benatar agree on antinatalist conclusions and the broader pessimistic philosophical background, but Julio's disagreement is in specific arguments and their style. One interesting feature of his criticism is implication of antinatalism on abortion and suicide. The book says the main substantive disagreement occurs on the issue of abortion and suicide. He, as in David Benatar, thinks that abortion follows more naturally from antinatalism and suicide does not, and I, as in Júlio Cabrera, think the opposite. Speaking of antinatalist books, there is another booklet in Spanish, Letters to the Unborn. That's the translated title. It's only 25 pages long and written under the pen name Anarchy Antinatalism. It looks like a radical book. The description says bringing someone into the world without their consent isn't an act of love. It is an imposition, a burden, a unilateral act. And when that existence is fraught with suffering, as is often intrinsically linked to the physical body, then parenthood ceases to be a simple mistake and becomes a crime. And a third book, although self-published, by Raul Cardona, Choosing the Void, a journey through antinatalism, exploring freedom in the silence of non-existence. Even though this book looks like a book on antinatalism, it seems more about goodness of non-existence rather than about badness of coming into existence. Looking at the abstract, this does not look like a philosophical content. It's more of author's personal opinions formed from his own subjective experiences. Still, could be an interesting read if that's the type of books you are into. There was an article, I think in Japanese, on whether Buddha was an antinatalist, but it is a PDF with textual images, so I could not translate that in English properly. But from whatever translation I could get done through AI, the point of the article was that Buddha was not an antinatalist because Buddha did not recommend complete renunciation of this world, which in my opinion is a logical leap because antinatalism also does not ask for complete renunciation. The ethics of savior siblings, is it morally permissible to create a child to save another, is the title of a final year student project. What is a savior sibling? Let's say you have a child who is suffering from some illness. That child needs some kind of stem cell therapy. For that, a donor is needed whose genetics match very closely with that of the child, but without the defect that the child's genes have. I am simplifying this to extreme level. The idea is that you can have another child who can act as a donor for your first child. That way, you have two healthy children instead of one unhealthy child. This second donor child is called savior sibling because it was brought into existence with an intention to save its sibling. So, is it morally permissible to have such a savior sibling? Right off the bat, we can see that we are using this child as a means to some kind of end, and Mr. Kant will have a problem with that. This paper/final year project attempts to defend this act. The author says, I argue that procreating and using savior siblings is morally permissible despite the concerns that it involves instrumentalizing the child, that is, using them as a means to an end, which conflicts with Kant's moral theory. A moral theory often aligned with our intuitions. I make this argument on the basis that despite our Kantian intuitions, most people are not strict Kantians and that ethical theories can often be overridden on practical grounds. The paper engages with antinatalist arguments of David BENATAR, the anti-abortion arguments of Don Marcus, and the pro-infanticide view of Peter Singer. Now, I don't have access to the full copy of this paper as it needs institutional access, but if you happen to have it, then please let me know. The link of this paper will of course be in the description.
क्या आपने कभी सोचा है कि हम किसी को पैदा क्यों करते हैं? क्या जीवन देना सच में सबसे बड़ा उपहार है या सबसे बड़ा बोझ?
This is a Hindi video talking about antinatalism by a channel called The Darshnik. My guess is it is made by AI voiceover, but the video is still good. It explains various arguments of antinatalism, history of antinatalism, as well as some objections to antinatalism. There are some problems with it though. It considers environmentalism as one of the arguments for ethical antinatalism, and it also gives an impression that antinatalism is only for humans. Other than that, it is a good introduction to antinatalism in Hindi. Last week, Lawrence did a video on efilism called The Ideology That Wants to End All Life, and to that was a response by Matt on his Life Sucks channel. Those two we covered in the last Antinatalism This Week's episode. But there have been more reactions. There was a two-part response, each about an hour long, by Invendum himself. By the way, Invendum's videos are published on his own website on efilism.com, and I think some of them then make it to YouTube. I'll put links to those in the description. And on top of that, brother Marcus also did an almost 6-hour long live stream, and a good part of it involved reacting to all these videos. And then Lawrence did an almost 4-hour long video reacting to the brainstorm he started. So this topic is creating enormous content, which I think is both good and bad in some ways. Now, there could have been more reactions to this that I don't know, so please let me know if I've missed any. Cyber Leninka is a Russian open access scientific electronic library. They had an article talking about antinatalism in Russia, political and legal mechanisms for combating the ideology of antinatalism in the Russian Federation. Now, obviously, this was in Russian, so I got it translated. The article analyzes the political and legal mechanisms of countering the ideology of antinatalism in modern Russia. Antinatalism is viewed as a destructive ideology that threatens the demographic security of the state. The authors explored legislative, executive, and judicial measures aimed at strengthening traditional family values and encouraging childbirth and restricting propaganda that undermines reproductive attitudes. This article is free to download as it is open access. Paul Joseph Watson put up a video criticizing women who either chose to not have children or regretted having them. Paul Joseph Watson is a far-right propaganda YouTuber who equates family values to having children. In this video, he confuses child-free women for antinatalism. He claims that this is a regime-driven propaganda. He thinks that caring for your own children, the ones you brought into existence for your own desires, is a selfless act. And his main complaint is that this is causing fertility decline in the West. As usual, pretty illogical but effective propaganda. Natal conference has happened on 28th and 29th of March in Austin, Texas, and we are now getting news about it in different media outlets. BBC had an article mentioning the natal conference, the influencers who want the world to have more babies, and say the White House is on their side by Stephanie Hegarty. It covers Simone and Malcolm Collins, the raw nationalist who has been recently doxxed, so we know his real name and face. His name is Charles Cornish Dale, and also many right wing think tankers and demographers, as well as professors like Catherine Parklook. Natal Conference is just one of the events it covers, but the main question the article asks is whether all of this would really result in any pronatalist policies given the Musks and Vances in the White House surrounding Trump. We can't really guess that. With the most uncertain president of the most powerful nation in the world, we will have to wait and watch. But for now, thanks for watching and see you next week.